Should we start, sir?
Should we start? Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Just a minute, let me activate the YouTube. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this evening episode of Pursue. And this is Pursue 18G, which is Hematology, Malignant Lymphoid and Plasmacytic Disorder. And we are streaming live from Chandigarh via Kolkata. We have a very young, bright, and a very vibrant pathologist here to speak on a very interesting topic. The topic of the day is microglobulinemia and heavy chain diseases, something which really is very important when we are trying to deal with elderlies. And to talk on that, we have Dr. Ariba Zaidi. She's an MBBS and MD pathology from PGI Chandigarh. Presently, she's an assistant professor in the MMI MSR Maulana Medical College, Ambala. Her areas of interest is hematology, lymphoma, breast pathology, and soft tissue tumors. She's got multiple publications in national and international journals, with multiple presentations in national conferences, and she's won awards there. So I would request all of you, please don't share your screen, and please keep your mic muted all throughout and if you want to ask any questions at the end of the day, we can have a question or session at the end of the session. So with that, let me request, Madam, please share your screen and let us start.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. Today, the topic which I am going to discuss is titled as macroglobulinemia and heavy chain diseases. So, the term macroglobulinemia refers to production of excess of IgM monoclonal protein that can occur in certain clonal lymphoproliferative disorders and plasma cell dyscrasia. It is a broad term which includes entities such as IgM MGUS, Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia, smoldering Waldenstrom's, and other lymphoproliferative disorders like CLL and other lymphoma variants. So, today we will be discussing broadly Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia, which is a lymphoid neoplasm resulting in accumulation of clonal cells, population of lymphocytes, lymphoplasmacytoid cells, and plasma cells predominantly in the marrow and also in other organs. This entity is accompanied by IgM monoclonal gammopathy in the blood. So the patient presents with various symptoms which are related either to the infiltration of these cells in the hematopoietic tissues or due to the effects of the monoclonal IgM in the blood. So also seen in this entity in less than 5% of the cases are secretion of other immunoglobulins, very rarely IgA, IgJ, G light chains, and it can be non-secretory also. It was first described by Jan Waldenstrom, so the name is given due to him as Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia. So this is more commonly reported in males and has been associated with this Ashkenazi Jewish ethnicity, more common in Caucasians, and the median age of presentation is 70 years. And very few, less than 10% patients can also occur under 50 years of age. So, and approximately 60% of them are males. So, as I told earlier, it is more common in males and more common in Caucasians population. So, coming to the pathogenesis of this entity. So, the pathogenic cell is believed to be the late stage B cell differentiated cell, which could be a post-germinal center IgM memory B cell that has undergone somatic hypermutation but failed to undergo isotype class switching. So these cells are believed to be CD25, CD22 activated B lymphocytes. So it has been seen that these cells, Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia has abundance of mast cells in the marrow, which can explain the microenvironment of this entity. So the cells, Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia, this is better understood by this diagram, where we can see that the late post-germinal center cell, which is believed to be the precursor cell of this entity, loses its surface CD27, which results in activation of these bone marrow mast cells through CD70 receptor, which results in this CD40 ligand-mediated production of B cell activators, which results in development of this lymphoplasmacytoid cells from the precursor's memory like CD27 negative cells, which have shed off their CD27 due to a matrix metalloproteinases 8 molecule. So, by blocking this CD70 molecule on the mast cells, we can inhibit the tumor cell growth in Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia, which indirectly tell us that this entity has a microenvironmental support system constituting of by the mast cells. So this is a micro photograph which is showing in the peripheral blood Roulet formation, which occurs due to the IgM protein in the blood, and also presence of the mast cells in the marrow surrounded by these plasma cells and the plasmacytoid cells. So coming to the mutation seen in this entity, we have both somatic and chromosomal abnormalities which have been described. The most important one is MYD88, where leucine is being replaced at 265 position by proline, and it is present in a vast majority of these patients. However, this is found in a large number of population of Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia, but this is not, MYD88 is not specific for Waldenstrom's and can be seen in other conditions as well. The other mutation which has been found associated in 40% cases of Waldenstrom's is CXCR4 gene mutation. So this abnormal mutated population of these cells result in production of monoclonal IgM, and the pathogenic effects occur due to this protein in the blood. The other abnormalities which have been found associated with this Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia is deletion of chromosome 6 and other chromosomal abnormalities like trisomy 18, 13q deletions, 17p deletions. They have also been described. 16q deletion represents the most recurrent cytogenetic finding in Waldenstrom's patient. So, MYD88 mutation is seen in 90 to 95% patients of Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia, but it can also be seen in other entities, as we saw earlier, that they can be also found in marginal zone lymphoma in 6 to 10% of the patients, and non-L265P mutations are also known in Waldenstrom's. So also this mutation is found in IgM ambus patients, which indicates the risk for malignant progression. So, as this mutation is found in IgM MGUS patients, this indicates that it is an early oncogenic driver mutation, and it requires further mutations and copy number alteration, which can lead to disease progression. So, how does MYT88 act? It acts through toll-like receptors and acts through interleukin-1 receptor signaling pathway. So this is a diagrammatic representation where we can see that MYT88 binds to this toll-like receptor as a homodimer and results in sequential phosphorylation of other molecules. The first one is interleukin receptor associated kinases 4,1 and further subsequent phosphorylation and activation of tumor necrosis receptor associated factor 6 and other proteins, which ultimately results in activation of NF-kappa B, which is responsible for survival of these Waldenstrom's tumor cells. Now, another molecule which we will discuss later is CXCR4. So the second most common somatic mutation after MYT88 is CXCR4 mutation, which is also seen in this diagram, which acts through PI3K pathway and subsequent phosphorylation of mitogen activated kinases and results in survival of these tumor cells. So two types of mutations have been described: nonsense mutations and frameshift mutations in CXCR4 molecule, which results in continuous stimulation of this receptor and enhanced survival of these neoplastic cells. Other somatic events which can be associated with in this entity are HIV-associated protein tumor necrosis, factor-associated protein inhibitors of gluten tyrosine kinase, ARID1A, TP53, and various other molecules. So what is the impact of this genomics in the Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia? It is seen that the patients having this mutation accompanied by the nonsense mutations in CXCR4 have a higher marrow disease involvement, high serum levels, and more symptomatic disease along with hyperviscosity syndrome. So, aggressive course is noted in cases of CXCR4 mutation. However, the risk of death is not affected by that. This is a tabulated form to show the clinical features of Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia, where we see the median age is described as 58 years. More commonly, males are being affected. High levels of IgM is seen in the serum, and increased serum viscosity, normal values of hematocrit, and the platelet count and WBC count remains normal, and beta-2 microglobulin is also found to be in normal range generally in these patients. Then coming to the immunological and physicochemical properties of this IgM protein and the effects which results due to them. This IgM can result in hyperviscosity, cryoglobulinemia, peripheral neuropathies, and cold agglutinin, which results in autoimmune hemolytic anemia. Organ dysfunction can occur due to this IgM monoclonal protein or the infiltration of these neoplastic cells in various organs. Coming to the morbidities associated with IgM, hyperviscosity, which results due to the aggregation of monoclonal IgM, which may bind to water, and also results in red cell aggregation, Reulet formation, which also reduces the red cell deformability. So the viscosity is directly proportional to the concentration up to 30 grams per liter, but at higher levels, this hyperviscosity increases very sharply. And it also, one of the causes of anemia in these patients is low level of erythropoietin production, which is related to the hyperviscosity in this patient, as it is indirectly proportional to the viscosity. So this hyperviscosity will present as oronasal mucosal bleeding, visual disturbances, and heart failure patients can experience aggravated symptoms. So the clinical manifestations of these circulatory disturbances can be examined by ophthalmoscopy in a better way. As we can see in this diagram, we have distended tortuous retinal veins, hemorrhages, and papillary edema. And symptoms usually occur when the IgM concentration is beyond 50 grams per liter. This figure I have adopted from Williams' hematology book. Next, coming to cryoglobulinemia. The IgM itself behaves as a cryoglobulin in 20% of the patients, and it is usually of type 1 cryoglobulinemia, and it depends on the concentration of the monoclonal IgM, and it manifests as Raynaud's phenomena, acrocyanosis and necrosis of the regions when they are which are exposed to the cold. Purpura, cold urticaria can occur. Renal manifestations are infrequent. Mixed cryoglobulins, that type 2 cryoglobulinemia can also occur when IgM combines with IgG complexes seen in hepatitis C patients. This monoclonal IgM also has an autoantibody activity, and which results in its pathogenic effects. Mostly it affects the nerves and red blood cell antigens. This IgM can result in peripheral neuropathy with the prevalence rate of 5 to 40%. It has also been seen that neuropathies are observed in other monoclonal gammopathy as well, but the predominance is being associated with IgM, followed by IgG and IgA. Nerve damage can result by IgM antibody causing demyelinating polyneuropathies, axonal neuropathy by endoneural deposition or amyloid deposition or neoplastic cell infiltration itself. So, in half of the patient, the antibodies are found against myelin-associated glycoprotein. The symptoms of neuropathy include paresthesias, aching discomfort, imbalance, leg muscle atrophy, and tremors. IgM can also result in cold agglutinin hemolytic anemia. It recognizes red cell specific antigens at temperatures less than 37 degrees Celsius, resulting in chronic hemolytic anemia, which is seen in 10% of the Waldenstrom's patient. And it occurs when the titers raises above 1:1000. Hemolysis is extravascular and mostly complement mediated, primarily takes place within the liver. And the symptoms include Raynaud's syndrome, acrocyanosis, and livedo reticularis. Now, this IgM can also directly go and deposit in various tissues as amorphous aggregates. If they are depositing in the skin, base membrane, they result in bullous skin diseases. If they are depositing in the GIT, they result in diarrhea, malabsorption, gastrointestinal bleeding. Kidney involvement is less common and less severe as compared to myeloma. However, light chain cast nephropathy is seen in this condition. Mild and reversible proteinuria can occur. So, now the tissue, the neoplastic cells themselves can also infiltrate within the tissues and result in various manifestations. Like they can present as masses and nodules, infiltrate, or pleural effusion in lung, resulting in cough, dyspnea, and chest pain. In gastrointestinal tract, they will result in malabsorption, diarrhea, bleeding, obstruction. Renal system, they can infiltrate within the interstitium, or they can present as renal as well as perirenal masses. In skin, they will present as dense lymphoplasmacytic infiltrate, forming cutaneous plaques and nodules. Also, rarely they can infiltrate the joints. They can present as ocular nerve palsies by infiltrating into orbital structures like thyroid gland, etc. In CNS, they can infiltrate and present as diffuse infiltrate or tumor masses. Then coming to the lab findings, anemia in this condition is usually normocytic normochromic along with rouleau formation. High MCV is falsely due to the rouleau formation or red cell agglutination, and ESR is raised. So, what do we see on bone marrow? We see that at least 10% of the bone marrow biopsy sample should show infiltration by small lymphocytes or plasmacytoid lymphocytes or plasma cells. So the lymphocytes showing plasma cell differentiation. The marrow infiltration is intertrabecular. It could be diffuse, interstitial, or nodular. These neoplastic cells are IgM positive and express the B cell markers like CD19, 20, 22, 79. which is the characteristic. Also, as we have seen earlier, that mast cells are prominent in the bone marrow. This is a microphotograph which shows these abundant lymphoid cells with lymphoplasmacytoid cells and also some plasma cells in the marrow infiltrate. Now the mostly on we can detect this protein on serum protein electrophoresis or urine protein electrophoresis, and we see a IgM monoclonal protein over there. And the light chain commonly associated is kappa light chain in 75 to 80% cases, and the concentration of that M spike remains to range between 15 to 45 grams per liter. Now, important is to know the differential diagnosis of this entity, which could be a marginal zone lymphoma, which can have a similar appearance. Entity called as Schnitzler syndrome, smoldering Waldenstrom's, IgM multiple myeloma, CLL, and Mendel cell lymphoma. Marginal zone lymphoma can have a similar morphological appearance. However, it will not show, it can present as involvement of lymph nodes or extranodal sites, and whereas Waldenstrom's can present without involvement of extra marrow sites. It can present just by infiltration of lymphoid cells within these atypical cells within the marrow, accompanied by a IgM in the blood. And this syndrome, Schnitzler syndrome, is characterized by chronic urticaria accompanied by IgM in the serum. Other symptoms with this syndrome are polyarthralgia, bone pains, etc. Smoldering Waldenstrom's does not have any symptoms. It is the band is there and the cells, neoplastic cells are there, but the symptoms are not there. Then we have IgM multiple myeloma. We can differentiate it with the other features of multiple myeloma, such as lytic lesions on bone, which are commonly seen in multiple myeloma but not very commonly seen in Waldenstrom's. Also, various translocations such as translocation 11-14, which is seen in multiple myeloma, is not seen in Waldenstrom's. CLL and Mendel cell lymphoma can be differentiated from Waldenstrom's based on their immunophenotypic profile, such as CLL shows positivity for CD5 and 23, which is not seen in Waldenstrom's, or rarely Waldenstrom's can show CD5 positivity. FMC7 is negative in CLL, which is seen positive in Waldenstrom's. Mendel cell lymphoma shows positivity for cyclin E1, which is not seen in Waldenstrom's. So it is important to keep those differentials in mind. Coming to the treatment depends on the symptoms of the patient, and therapy is initiated only with the patients having constitutional symptoms or having progressive lymphadenopathy or splenomegaly or having anemia less than 10, platelet count less than 10 due to the marrow infiltration by these atypical lymphoid cells, or any complication due to IgM or by the neoplastic cells themselves. So, presence of cytopenias need more rapid disease control, age, and also if the candidate is for autologous transplant therapy, then care should be taken while choosing the drug. I am not going into detail about the treatment of this entity. So I am just discussing the agents which are used for the treatment, such as oral alkylating agents such as chlorambucil, nucleoside analog therapy, CD20 directed therapy, because these cells, they are expressing CD20, rituximab can be used. Proteasome inhibitors such as bortezomib, carfilzomib, etc. Combination therapies can be used, and other novel therapeutics such as ibrutinib and zanubrutinib, etc. can be, which are now approved by FDA, can be used. Now this is a response criteria which have been described as a complete response, very good partial response, minimal response, and stable disease, as well as progressive disease based on the IgM levels in the serum, infiltration into the marrow, as well as extramedullary disease, and also based on the signs and symptoms of the active disease. We have to categorize the response to the therapy in these categories. Coming to course and prognosis, Waldenstrom's is generally an indolent disease, And various prognostic factors can decide the prognosis as well as the course, such as age. Higher age has a adverse prognosis accompanied by various comorbidities. Anemia, if present, has a adverse prognostic factor. Other cytopenias and elevated levels of beta 2 microglobulin levels have shown strong prognostic correlation. So there is a scoring system, IPSS scoring system for Waldenstrom's, which takes into account age, more than 65 years, hemoglobin less than 11.5, platelet less than 1 lakh, and beta 2 microglobulin more than 3 milligrams per liter, and serum monoclonal protein concentration more than 70 per gram liter as adverse factors. Now coming to heavy chain disease. First of all, the pathogenesis of heavy chain disease. These are the neoplastic cells which are producing monoclonal immunoglobulins consisting of truncated heavy chains and without any light chains. So it results due to genetic alteration such as somatic mutation, deletions and insertions, which result in production of such truncated heavy chains. So this is a normal structure of an immunoglobulin, which is comprising of a light chain and a heavy chain, and we can see this is the variable region, the CH1 region, hinge region, and the CH2. So what happens in the heavy chain diseases is that there is mutation in the variable region commonly, and also deletion of this CH1 domain, which results in abnormal production of this heavy chains. So light chain are unable to bind these heavy chains. So in normal situation, if a heavy chain does not bind to a light chain, what will happen is that it will bind to a heat shock protein 78 and undergo proteasomal degradation rather than secretion. However, in cases of heavy chain diseases, there is some mutations, deletion in the CH1 regions, which result in, due to which these heavy chains are unable to bind to the light chain, as well as they do not bind to the heat shock protein also, so they get secreted in the various body secretions such as serum or in sometimes in jejunal or duodenal fluids also, and result in disease manifestation. So there are three types of heavy chain diseases: gamma, alpha, and mu. The first one is the gamma heavy chain disease, which is a biochemical expression of mutant B cell clone producing gamma chains devoid of any light chains. It is predominantly seen in women and with a median age of presentation of 68 years. The etiology and pathogenesis is not known in this end. It presents as a disseminated lymphoproliferative disease in 60% patients and can also be localized as seen in 25% of the patients, and can be asymptomatic also. This is data of a study conducted on 23 patients seen at Mayo Clinic, who presented with a monoclonal spike on electrophoresis, which was seen in 83% of the cases. Lymphadenopathy, hemoglobin less than 10, bone marrow involvement was seen in 32% patients. Also, some patients showed splenomegaly, skin involvement, and hepatomegaly with platelet count of less than 1 lakh. So, most of the gamma heavy chain diseases are dimers or truncated heavy chains. So, as such, these heavy chains are smaller as compared to the normal heavy chain, but they undergo dimerization. So, the size of the heavy chain increases; they become heavy. So, in most cases, the heavy chain begins with a normal variable region, followed by which is very short, which is interrupted by large deletion, and also CH1 domain gets deleted. So the normal sequence begins at the hinge region or at the CH2 domain, as this is seen in the this is the heavy chains of various patients which have been presented in one of the studies, where this is the variable region. We can see very small variable region is there, followed by large deletions. CH1 domain is also being lost, and then normal hinge region followed by CH2 regions are there. So this is the deletion which occurs in the these heavy chains. This figure I have adopted from Williams hematology book. So now coming to the serum and urine protein findings, which are variable in this condition. The characteristic described in are described in SPEP is that the serum protein electrophoresis is a broad-based band, which is at first impression can give an impression of polyclonal gammopathy. However, if we will perform an immunofixation, it will consist of gamma heavy chains only without any light chain. The monoclonal peak usually is detected in B region in 60 to 80% patients with a spike of 4 to 39 grams per liter. Sometimes biclonal gammopathy can also be found in these patients. This is a serum. This is an immunofixation electrophoresis. We can see this SPEP gel, which is showing a band over here, which on the immunofixation shows positivity only in the IgG region. This is the serum electrophoresis, and this is the urine. So in urine, we have a broad-based band which is showing positivity only on IgG, and the other light chains are not there. Please don't get confused by this staining. This is just smearing, and it is not the positivity of light chains. So the hematological abnormalities which we found in Waldenstrom's is anemia. Autoimmune hemolytic anemia can also be seen. The total and differential count usually remains normal. Lymphocytosis may occur, and the marrow shows increase in plasma cells, lymphocytes, and plasmacytoid lymphocytes, as we see in Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia. So we have on histopathology, no definite morphological pattern has been described. However, there may be various underlying lymphoproliferative disorders which can be seen. There is most frequently lymphoplasmacytic proliferation in marrow and lymph nodes, which express pan B cell markers, and they are negative for with cytoplasmic gamma heavy chain, and they are negative for CD5 and CD10. This is a panel of photographs which is showing a section from lymph node showing infiltration by these lymphoplasmacytoid cells also present on the marrow. They are showing positivity for IgG, and also they are negative for kappa lambda light chains. Coming to therapy, the therapy depends on the clinical findings. If the patient is asymptomatic, then no therapy is indicated, and if there is an associated autoimmune diseases, then standard therapy for that disease is given. Then otherwise, if the patient is symptomatic and requires treatment, appropriate chemotherapy is given, which can include melphalan with prednisone and other B-cell lymphoma regimens. And if it is expressed in CD20, then anti-CD20 and antibody rituximab is used. The course of this disease is variable, and not much is known because these entities are rarer. So about the prognosis and course of this entity, in a study of 23 patients, the median survival was found to be 7.4 years, and also the amount of this heavy chain protein correlates with the severity of the associated process. Coming to the alpha heavy chain disease, it is a proliferative disorder of B-cell lymphoid cells having IgA, involving the IgA secretory immune system, especially the gastrointestinal tract. These have monoclonal alpha chains which are devoid of light chain, more commonly described in North Africa, Israel, or Middle East countries, and occurs in young adults, which is in contrast to other entities which we discussed till now, which are affecting an elderly population. Alpha heavy chain disease is affecting the younger population, occurs more common in males. Coming to etiology, the cause of this entity is not known. However, complex interaction between the environment as well as the genetic factors play a role in this pathogenesis. The lymphoplasmacytic infiltration can be treated and has been seen to be treated by administration of antibiotics, so which enhances the fact that there is some relation with the endigenic stimulation in this entity. Campylobacter jejuni has been associated with this disease. However, this putative agent may be present only at the onset of the disease and may not be found at the time of diagnosis. So the clinical features include malabsorption, which will be manifested as diarrhea, weight loss, abdominal pain, amenorrhea, alopecia, growth retardation, which is due to the malabsorptive process. Hepatosplenomegaly, lymphadenopathy are infrequent. Fever is uncommon in this condition. So again, Alpha heavy chain disease are consisting of multiple polymers. So the length of the basic polypeptides subunit is between half to three quarters of a normal alpha chain, but it undergoes polymerization, and it commonly is of alpha 1 subclass. Again, we will have to do a serum protein electrophoresis, urine protein electrophoresis, and intestinal fluid examination, which will show presence of a spike of alpha chains. But it may not be present sometimes when the mature plasma cells have been replaced by immature immunoblasts. It may result in progressive decrease in the serum concentration of alpha heavy chain disease, and also in the early stage of disease when the alpha heavy chain is not in significant concentration, it may be missed. So in conditions where the serum and urine protein electrophoresis are not determining any results, then jejunal secretions of gastric fluids can be used, and they can show presence of alpha heavy chain disease. Also, if sometimes these alpha heavy chain disease can also be non-secretory, so in that case we can do IHC to demonstrate the presence of alpha heavy chains. Most of the symptoms are related to the malabsorption, which will result in anemia, hypokalemia, hypocalcemia, hypomagnesemia in these patients. So on endoscopy, we have some features which will indicate that the patient has alpha heavy chain disease. It affects duodenum and jejunum commonly, and on endoscopy there are hypertrophic and pseudopolyp or mucosal folds which are associated with strictures and filling defects. Endoscopy infiltrated pattern is more specific as compared to the nodular pattern, and other lesions such as ulceration, mosaic pattern are non-specific for this injury. So histopathologically, Galian and colleagues have divided the stages of involvement of this disease, where stage A has mature plasmacytic or lymphoplasmacytic infiltration in the lamina propria only, and not beyond, and villus atrophy is variable. Stage B has when the atypical plasmacytic cells or lymphoplasmacytic cells are there, which are extending at least up to submucosa, and which will be accompanied by a total villus atrophy. Stage C corresponds to a immunoblastic lymphoma. This is a panel of photographs which is showing duodenal biopsy infiltrated by these lymphocytes and lymphoplasmacytoid cells, and they are showing positivity for IgM. So, in 1976, a consensus panel concluded that alpha heavy chain disease and Mediterranean lymphoma constitute a spectrum of disease, and a term immunoproliferative small intestinal disease came into use. This term is applied to small intestinal lesions showing pathological features which are identical to those of alpha heavy chain disease, regardless of the type of the immunoglobulin synthesized. The pattern of alpha chain disease lesions include lymphoepithelial lesion composed of centrocyte-like cells, which indicates that it could be a subtype of a lymphoma arising from mucosa-associated lymphoid cell, and which shows expression of pan-B cell markers, and the plasma cells present in the lesion lacks CD20 and will be positive for CD138 and CD79A. The cytogenetics abnormalities seen, which can be found in this condition, are translocation 9 protein to 14 or 59. Coming to the therapy, stage A lesions can be cured by oral antibiotics, and patients with stage B or C lesions or stage A lesions which are not having any improvement by antibiotic therapy can be given chemotherapy. The chemotherapy can be doxorubicin-based regimens, which include cyclophosphamide, doxorubicin, hydrochloride, butyrostine, and if there is extreme plasma cell differentiation, then novel agents like thalidomide, lenalidomide, others can be used. Coming to course and prognosis, the course of this disease is variable, and relapse can occur at any stage. So the long-term prognosis is unclear because this entity is also very rare, so larger studies have not been conducted. However, some immunomarkers have been found, such as Syndican, BCL6, P53, which can act as prognostic indicators. Patients having poor prognosis will have a higher fraction of cells in S phase, lower Syndican1 expression, and higher BCL6 expression. Coming to the last entity, this is the new heavy chain disease, where we have proliferative disorder of B lymphocytes by recognition of monoclonal deleted these heavy chains. It is extremely rare and few cases have been described, with median age of presentation of 57.5 years, and the cause is unknown. Clinical features include lymphoproliferative malignancies and various lymphoproliferative disorders such as CLL, Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia, and myeloma have been found in these patients. Some of the patients may have amyloidosis also. Splenomegaly and hepatomegaly are common, and peripheral lymphadenopathy has also been described. In this entity, we will find a monoclonal spike. Immunofixation of both serum and urine should be done. Also, another important feature of this entity is presence of Benz-Jones proteinuria, which is found in this heavy chain disorder. And non-secretory cases have also been reported here. So, coming to hematological findings, these patients have anemia, lymphocytosis, and thrombocytopenia are uncommon, and examination of the marrow will show us lymphocyte, plasmacytoid lymphocytes, and plasma cells. And here the plasma cells have a characteristic appearance of vacuolated cytoplasm. So this is a new heavy chain disease showing plasma cells with cytoplasmic vacuoles. Then coming to histopathology of this, very few cases have been studied. In a study of 22 patients, it was associated with lymphoplasmic proliferative disorder. Some showed CLL, Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia, and myeloma also. There is no specific therapy for this entity also, and it requires close follow-up for the development of a symptomatic lymphoplasmacytic disorder. Once this develops, chemotherapy is indicated. Again, the course is variable, and the median duration of survival is about 24 months. This is a tabulated form of to show all these three heavy chain diseases, where we can see that alpha shows a presence of monoclonal IgA, whereas gamma has IgG, and mu has IgM, and rarely MGUS phase is seen in gamma and mu, whereas it is not seen in IgA. Also, urinary heavy protein can be seen in small amounts of alpha, but not in others. And also, the site of involvement is different in these entities, where alpha is commonly seen in intestine, others are seen in marrow and lymph nodes, and the associated diseases are infection and malabsorption in cases of alpha, whereas there are autoimmune conditions in gamma, and management is also different in these entities. This table I have adopted from Williams Hematology book. Thank you. These are the references.
Thank you, Dr. Ariba, for wonderful presentation. Can you just hold on? Let us see if there are any questions. We have a slight 1 minute delay between Google Meet and YouTube.
So should I stop sharing the screen?
Yeah, please stop sharing. That will be very nice. Then we can see you on the screen. Okay, just press stop presentation. Dr. Simran Kaur says, good evening, ma'am. I think she knows you.
She's my student.
Wonderfully and very extensively handled subject. How often do you see yourself these cases?
Very, not very common. We have seen other similar kind of entities such as marginal lymphoma, marginal zone lymphomas, or this maltomas we have seen, but not exactly heavy chain diseases or.
Right. Of course, we have to investigate accordingly to
Yes,
exactly find them.
we modalities also, like we should do the protein electrophoresis serum and urine as well. Then only we can detect these entities. Also the bone marrow biopsies. If we are not doing it, we will probably miss them.
Right. Yeah. I think there are no questions either on the YouTube nor on the Google Meet. Thank you for such an extensive and very nice presentation. I would request you to please share the PDF of this presentation so that we can share with the students on the Google Drive.
Okay, sir. So I have to share it with on the drive, Google Drive.
I will share my email ID. You can send the PDF on that.
Yes.
I will upload it.
So,
Thank you so much, ma'am. Take care. Good night. God bless you. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.